There's something that's been bothering me about Zootopia 2, and it's the flower that isn't in it. Nobody in Zootopia 2 says the words Night Howler, not Bellwether, Judy, not her parents. Doug isn't even mentioned. Duke Weaselton shows up, but only to sell bootleg DVDs, and the recap of the film's first conspiracy in the cold open of the sequel describes Bellwether's crimes as, and I quote, a conspiracy by Mayor Bellwether using a toy carrot recorder pen. That's it, a pen. Which, fine, sequels move on, except the family the first movie spent 40 minutes selling as the wholesome emotional center of the franchise is a family that openly farms the exact plant the conspiracy used to nearly burn Zootopia to the ground. They were growing it while the city panicked. They were growing it around their own 275 children. And the father of that family, Stu Hops, tells you on camera, in broad daylight, in front of his own cop daughter, that he knows what the flower does to rabbits. He tells you why he knows. He tells you who it happened to. 10 years of fan theories, and not one of them has looked at Stu Hops and said out loud what the scene actually shows. So I'm going to. And before anyone says it, no, this isn't going to be a Stu is the cartel video. The Hops don't sell to Doug. The truth is quieter than that, and it's worse. Stu Hops is the original Night Howler incident, and the franchise has spent 2 movies pointing the camera away from him. Let's go back to the Hops farm, the third act of Zootopia in 2016. Judy has quit the force. She's selling carrots at a roadside stand with her parents, and a van rolls up. The van says Gideon Gray's real good baked stuff with fresh produce from Hops' family farm. Out steps Gideon Gray, the bully fox who clawed Judy's face when they were kids. Except he's grown up, he's baking pies, and the Hops are in business with him. Judy is stunned. She asks if that's really Gideon Gray, and Bonnie says this.
He's our partner. And we never would have considered it had you not opened our minds.
Remember that line, we never would have considered it. Plural. Joint family decision, both parents signed off, and that's going to matter later. Stu adds that Gideon is one of the top pastry chefs in the Tri-Boroughs. Gideon apologizes for being a bully as a kid, blames it on self-doubt, says he's a jerk, and Disney sets it up for tears. And then, mid-heartwarming moment, Stu sees 3 bunny kids running toward a line of purple flowers, and he yells,
"Hey kids, don't you run through that Mindicampum Holycythius!"
Did you catch that? He uses the Latin name, the full scientific binomial, to his own toddlers, like he said it 1,000 times. Gideon, standing right there holding a tray of pies, looks at Stu and says this.
Well, now there's a $4 word, Mr. H. My family always just called them night howlers.
Judy freezes. Her face changes. She knows that name. She's been hearing it for weeks from Manchus, from the case files, from every savage predator in Zootopia, and her father is standing next to a row of them growing in his yard. Stu sees her reaction and just waves it off. In one sentence, on camera, Stu admits 3 things. 1, he grows them. I use them. 2, he grows them on purpose, to keep the bugs off the produce. That's agricultural intent. And finally, 3, he knows the flower is dangerous to mammals. He doesn't want his kids near it on account of what happened to Uncle Terry. And then because Stu is unable to stop, he and Bonnie rehearse the Uncle Terry incident like a dinner anecdote.
Yeah, Terry ate one whole when we were kids and went completely nuts.
He bit the dickens out of your mother.
Went completely nuts. The exact phenomena that is right now terrifying the capital of this country happened on this farm to the woman currently standing next to the father who is still growing the plant that caused it. Judy realizes exactly what she's being told. So freeze frame, Stu Hops on camera using the exact word the entire Zootopia panic is built around, approvingly about his own wife caused by his own crop, which he farms next to his own 275 children, and which he warns those children away from in Latin. He is the original documented Night Howler incident, and he's telling you. The audience laughs and the admission slides by. Stu isn't the only one who tells on the farm. Judy does it first, and she does it to a cop. Early in the movie, Judy arrests Duke Weaselton. Duke has stolen a bag of bulbs from a downtown florist. Bogo thinks they're onions. Judy, trying to justify having chased a weasel through Little Rodentia, says this.
Hate to disagree with you, sir, but those aren't onions. Those are a crocus varietal called Mydnicampum holocysthius. They're a Class C botanical, sir. Well, I grew up in a family where plant husbandry was kind of a thing.
Shut your tiny mouth now!
Okay, stop. That's a confession on 2 counts. First of all, Judy can identify these bulbs on sight by their full Latin name inside a police station. She's not a botanist, she's a rookie cop on day 1 of her first real case. The reason she can do this, she tells us out loud, is her family. Secondly, she calls them Class C botanical. The film never defines what Class C is. It doesn't have to. The term existing means the plant is regulated. You don't slap a classification on a houseplant. Judy is telling her boss inside Precinct 1 that her family's plant husbandry was deep enough that she learned the taxonomy of a regulated botanical growing up. But Bogo cuts her off before she can finish the thought. The film knows what it's doing. It gives Judy 1 sentence to implicate her family, and then a Cape Buffalo slams the door on her. And remember, this scene happens before the savage attacks even start. Judy walks into the crisis already carrying inherited expertise on the exact plant at the center of it. She tells her boss this on day 1, on record, and nobody in the room picks it up. Now let's go back to Gideon's line.
My family always just call them night howlers.
2 families in a single rural country grow up around the same plant. The Greys keep the dangerous folk name alive. Night howlers. Generations of family vocabulary. Gideon says it casually. It's the name he's used his whole life. The Hops, the one who actually grow the plant, have scrubbed it down to the Latin. The linguistic asymmetry is the tell. When a family that grows a dangerous plant switches from the folk name to the Latin name, that's a family that's realized a generation ago that some words bring down heat. The Greys are still saying that this is the plant that makes you go crazy, but the Hops are saying this is the plant nobody needs to think about. Gideon isn't a whistleblower on purpose. He's a whistleblower because the Hops forgot the other family never bothered to sanitize their vocabulary. He walks in with pies, drops the street name in front of everyone, and doesn't know he just said the quiet part out loud. But Judy knows. Watch her face in that frame. That's the moment the film turns, and it turns because a fox used a word her family had spent a generation deleting. And the second he says it, Judy solves the case in like 30 seconds. Here's the question the film never asks. Where does the florist get the bulbs? The chain you see on screen is short and dead ends fast. Duke robs a downtown shop. Duke sells the bulbs to Doug. Doug grows the rest in a subway car with grow lights. So the Hops aren't drug dealers, the film says that out loud, but the wholesale chain upstream of that florist is a blank. The film names the store, it never names the supplier. I genuinely don't know who supplies that florist. The film never tells us. What I can tell you is that this flower is Class C. This flower sends rabbits into a completely nut state from eating one whole, and the bulbs are sitting on the retail floor of a downtown shop in the capital of a mammal civilization where Bogo writes them up as moldy onions. Something grows the bulbs that fill that shop, and that something has acreage, farmers who know how to handle the flower, and a regional agricultural culture that treats the plant as part of the landscape. The film shows us exactly one such region. It's called Bunnyborough, and the film shows us exactly one farm in Bunnyborough, and that farm belongs to Judy's parents. The Hops aren't Bellwether's kingpins. They're the farming culture that makes Bellwether's plan materially possible. They're the reason the dealer could shop retail. They're the reason the bulbs are cheap, available, open shelf, and stocked like produce. They're the reason Doug could start a Subway lab with a weasel thief and an envelope of cash. The only farm the film ever shows growing night howlers in rows as a crop around 275 children is the Hops farm. The film walks right up to that question, draws a box around it, and then walks away. Now that's not proof, I'm not going to pretend that it is, but the Hops don't have to be Bellwether's suppliers for this to be damning. They just have to be the reason it was easy, and on that, the film is very loud. Because once you accept that, you have to look at the one piece of evidence the family thought they buried. Uncle Terry. The script raced past him the first time. That was a mistake. Picture what actually happened. A child on a working farm eats one of the purple flowers his uncle grows in rows behind the house. Within minutes, he's not a child anymore. He goes, in Bonnie's words, completely nuts. He attacks the nearest mammal he can reach, and that mammal is his sister. He bites down hard enough on a small rabbit's arm to take a piece out of it. A sizable divot, Stu calls it. That's a wound that needed stitches. That's a wound that's scarred. That's a wound Bonnie still wears under her sleeve, decades later when her daughter, the cop, comes home for the weekend. Now think about what didn't happen. No ambulance came down the road. No rural county sheriff opened a file. No agricultural inspector showed up to ask what the kid had eaten. Nothing. The Hops washed Bonnie's arm, wrapped it, made a decision around the kitchen table about what to call the flower from now on, and went back to work the next morning. When Judy briefs Bogo on the Savage attack, Bogo says this.
Savage, this isn't the Stone Age, Hops. Animals don't go savage.
Nobody in the Zootopia Police Department has heard of Uncle Terry. Nobody in the city has heard of Uncle Terry. There's no paper trail or medical record, no rural hospital filing that got pulled when the first savage otter showed up. The original documented case of a Class C botanical turning a mammal savage in the jurisdiction of ZPD happened on the Hops farm, and nobody outside the family knows about it. Stu knows, Bonnie knows, she's the victim. Judy on screen is clearly learning this for the first time, or learning it in a form she can finally process. Mr. Otterton's wife is in the ZPD handing a picture of her husband over to Judy Hopps, desperate to find him again. And the first, oldest, most directly comparable incident in the case file is in the memory of the man handing his daughter a carrot and smiling. The Hopps didn't hide the Uncle Terry incident from Doug or from Bellwether. There's no evidence that they were aware of any conspiracy. They hid it from their daughter, the cop. They hid it from the agency she worked for. They hid it from the city their produce feeds into. And they did so because that's what families like this do when the thing they grow next to their 275 children has a documented history of making people bite. A family made a decision a generation ago that the flower could stay in the ground if nobody said the scary name out loud anymore. And then a crisis happened. Their daughter walked straight into it, and they didn't say the name until a fox showed up with pies. Okay, Zootopia ends. Bellwether goes to prison. Judy and Nick become partners. The cure works. The Hopps keep farming. 9 years pass. Then Zootopia 2 comes out, and the family shows up exactly once. A muzzle time video call to Judy's apartment.
Well, you two are very different. Small town hero raised on a farm.
Raised on a farm. Did you catch it? Bonnie uses the word farm. She doesn't say what the farm grows, just farm. Flat, no modifier. Then the grandmother, Gram, a new character in the sequel who belongs to the generation that lived through the Uncle Terry incident, grabs the phone.
I pray every day that you'll come back home and make baby.
She's the matriarch, the generation that was there, pushing reproductive pressure on her cop granddaughter while saying nothing about the family business the cop granddaughter once accidentally cracked. Then Stu takes the phone back. Slow down here because this is the moment the sequel quietly tells you everything.
Mom.
Just remember the first rule of partnerships. You can be right, or you can be happy.
That's true.
There's nothing wrong with dying a little inside so you can meet in the middle.
Honey.
Now hold up, that didn't sound like relationship advice. It sounded like a man in his 60s on a video call with his daughter telling her out loud the philosophy he organized his entire adult life around. Stu Hopps grew a flower that put a divot in his wife's arm. He chose for decades to keep that quiet. He scrubbed the folk name out of his family's vocabulary and taught his toddlers the Latin instead. That's a man who's died a little inside, on purpose, for 40 years so the farm could meet the world in the middle. And now he's on the phone, looking at his daughter, recommending it. Being right would have meant calling the hospital about Terry. Being right would have meant flagging the crop. Being right would have meant saying night howler at the kitchen table when his daughter, the cop, was visibly putting the case together. But Stu picked happy. The farm survived. The children grew up. Bonnie's arm healed and the Latin name stuck. He isn't lying to Judy on that call, he's confessing. He's just doing it in the only language he has left after a lifetime of practice. The language of a man who decided a long time ago that some questions don't get asked at his table. And the film doesn't have Judy follow up. Of course it doesn't. She just smiles and hangs up. But there's one more piece, and it's an absence. Gideon Gray isn't in Zootopia 2. Not glimpsed or cameoed, not even mentioned. His van isn't in a Bunny Burrow establishing shot. His and Stu's partnership, the emotional high note the first movie closed on, is not shown operating. The one character with the street name in his mouth is gone. The sequel keeps the cop, keeps the parents and the mayor, and keeps the weasel as a fourth wall DVD joke, and drops the fox who said the quiet part out loud. That's the franchise making a choice. The original Zootopia is a brilliant piece of screenwriting, rigorous about its own allegory. The whole film is about how prejudice gets encoded in language and institutions and the quiet moves people make to keep their comfort. And every character gets held accountable. Bellwether goes to prison, Doug gets busted, Lionheart faces the press, the ZPD reckons with itself, and the city heals. Every character, except Stu and Bonnie Hops. Stu, who farms the plant that makes the serum work, never gets asked a question, never a follow-up, never gets a moment where his daughter turns and goes, "Wait, Dad, did you know what these flowers were the whole time?" 9 years later, Zootopia 2 arrives and gives Stu a whole scene, a whole new philosophy, be right or be happy. And Judy never asks. And honestly, I don't think she can. Once you've spent a whole movie idolizing your parents' wholesomeness, asking the next question could cost you the family. Stu picked happy, so did Judy. That's the franchise making a choice, twice across 2 movies, that the one question that would crack the wholesome, rural Americana of the Hops family is the one question the script will never write. Gideon's cut, the flowers are off screen, the phone call avoids the topic, the recap says a toy carrot recorder pen, Bellwether smiles in her cell at a Gazelle concert, and Judy Hopps is a good cop with a Fox partner she loves, dying a little inside so she can meet her parents in the middle. That's the lie. Not that the Hops are drug kingpins, they aren't. The Hops are a family of farmers who grow a flower they know turns their own kids feral, who collectively, quietly, generationally decided to use the Latin name because the Latin name is the name the children will not remember. They partnered with the Fox family across town whose grandparents already knew the street name. They shook hands over pies and a new business the same week their daughter, the cop, broke open the citywide conspiracy that was built on top of their crop. The first movie never asks if they knew. The sequel never asks if they knew. Gideon Gray was the only one in the scene who said the real name of the flower out loud. The first movie ended with him apologizing for being a bully, and the second movie didn't invite him back. Bunnyborough chose happy, and the franchise chose to keep the camera pointed at the pies. And subscribe, drop your theories in the comments, and YouTube really thinks you'll like this theory, so go check it out.